Pac-12 already?
Yes, we had an awesome practice today. We've once again tried to ramp some things up and hold us a little bit more accountable for what was going on in the gym, and they responded well. So anytime we have a good practice, it makes me excited.
I mean, last week you felt you guys practiced well, and then there's a little bit of letdown. How do you keep them moving that into the competition floor?
You know, we're giving them a lot of quotes. We're spending more time watching video. We're spending more time asking and answering questions to put them in a position where they have the positive thoughts going through their head in the midst of everything that's going on. Sometimes it becomes overwhelming for them, I guess, for anyone, you know, the amount of information that they're given sometimes. And it doesn't necessarily always translate to them truly understanding. We had a group yesterday that we brought in and had them actually write down some things, and it took them a while to get them to understand what we were saying. So learned that they may not be the best learners just by listening. So, you know, trying to meet them where they are in terms of them learning.
What's your overall assessment of the non-conference schedule, how you guys manage it, and kind of an overview of that?
Disappointing on some of the losses that we had, but I think we scheduled the way we should have. I think that each match provided us with something we needed to see that would put us in a position to be ready for Pac-12 play, as well as for each week that was coming up. So I think, we were in control, and we let a couple things go, and didn't start out on fire either. Can't forget that one.
5 of the 6 losses were top 51 teams as far as like unofficial RPI. Is that kind of what you're looking for in the future?
Yes. I think in order for us to see what we're made of, you have to play someone. I mean, if it were a young group, I would probably schedule maybe just a little bit different to try to get us more wins. But at the end of the day, you don't know with the transfer portal. You don't know who's on whom's roster. With the fact that we were returning so many of our pins, I thought that we were in a position to be a little bit better in some of those matches.
Is the serve-receive issues you're having, is that an easy fix? Is that a fix that takes eventually a different type of player that can execute that better?
It's a little bit of both. It's one of those things, the more reps you get, the better you understand, but sometimes you just don't have a feel. And so it's like, can you put them in a position to be able to execute in one rotation and then find another person in another rotation? So it's a lot of moving pieces behind it, but we're spending a ton of days and hours and watching just for them to be able to understand. And you never know whose day is going to come up when they can just be able to function. And sometimes just being able to function is what's necessary. But as I watch the different teams play out there, I mean, there's a few teams that pass well, but many teams have a little black hole there too.
We're going to talk to Georgia. What was her recruitment like? What did you, when you saw her, what did you like that you thought she added? And
Believe it, we only saw her on film. And my friend at another university told me about her. It was kind of funny. We were, here I go. We were playing at UNLV, and every team was serving our little people, which isn't normally the norm. You tend to stay away from them because you assume that they're able to pass. And it's no fault of anyone that was in the program, but none of them had been a libero at this level. So they were learning. They were a DS, or Ava was a setter, and so it was a transition for them. But a couple people came up to me and said, okay, you guys are close. If you have A, B, or C, then you're going to be in a good position, which is what every team we've played, they're saying, your team is going to be really good as soon as you get better at this or get better at that. So at that point, we knew, but it was one of those things, it was like, okay, can we get someone in here? And we had a lead on a couple players, but we didn't have money. And so that's part of, can you get a kid in here? Because you could look around the corner and you'll find a little person that wants to come and play at this level. But do they have the ability to pass? Do they have the ability to set out of system? Do they have the ability to play defense? Do they have the ability to serve? And, whatever athlete you have that fits the bill in those 4 categories the best, typically is the person. But the reality is you need someone that can pass. That's the number one thing that they need to be able to bring to the table. And with Joy not having been here last spring, you didn't know what was going to happen or what that would look like. So
Who's the best you've coached at that here?
The best libero that I've coached here? You know, Kenzie Gillespie was a phenomenal passer. So from a passing aspect, it was her. Laura Larson was tough as nails and would just do everything. She was a workhorse, and so she figured it out. I wouldn't say passing was necessarily easy for her, but she put in the reps, so that was one of the better ones because she made it fun for you. And then Kamiley just brought everything to the table, and she was a fierce competitor, so that made it something that was, you know, fun. But as I think back over the years in the libero position, it was probably Brittany Leonard that kind of changed things up a little bit because she just understood the game. Kelly Mulvaney understood the game, and that's part of it. And that's where Georgia is a little bit different than others. She understands it. She's done it. She gets it. And so you have to just rein her back a little bit, whereas the others you're pushing and say, okay, you got to figure this out. You got to know this. You got to do this. You don't have to say those things to her. You just have to kind of contain her a little bit until she can continue to get the reps and the experience of being here in the States. And then she's going to take off and flourish in that position.
What's your overall philosophy on recruiting international players?
I love it. I love the idea of a kid that can come in and have had experience. You know, they're not afraid to work, and that's not a knock against the players that we have, but that's all they know. You know, any player team that they played on over there, they practice 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and it's the norm. You know, here, we've always been regulated on how many hours you have, so that becomes the norm. Oh, can't do that. Or they'll watch more film, or they understand players in different universities and different places. And so the key for us is to catch up the players that don't have that backing or don't have that understanding and talk to them and show them film. So, you know, time is your biggest enemy.
Is her situation similar to basketball, I guess, where was she just playing high school? Was she playing on a club with older players?
She was playing in a club with older players, yes.
And that's how they develop up there, right? I mean,
Yes.
about what age do they start generally?
You know, every place is a little bit different. I mean, Milan is not necessarily known for the volleyball guru, but Italy is. And so, you know, you have a lot of experience over there. So when you play internationally, typically you don't stay at home. You go to a school that, you know, allows you, more like prep schools that are taking off and flourishing a little bit here, very well in basketball, and they just started one at IMG. And so they're just used to doing it. They're used to monitoring their work, and, you know, it's like, okay, I practice 3 hours, I'm off for an hour, and then I practice again. And so they're playing against the best that they can in that environment, whereas in the club world, here in the States, you practice 2-3 days a week, and, you know, you're in a small gym quite often, you don't get the reps, and you're not playing against the best competition all the time.
And Dave said that it kind of surprised him when, like, you guys got Merla and all of that group together, just how different they were from American kids. And it was business for them.
We did this one drill. It was Merla, Delara, and it was for sure those two. And they were like, why are we doing this? This is so easy. I can't believe we're spending time doing this. Whereas, you know, a couple of Americans were like, oh, my bad. My bad. So it was kind of funny to watch just what is easy for them. And Sophia will tell the story. We will play drills, and you had to be cooperative. And, you know, we just laughed about this a couple of days ago, because sometimes we'll say things that we take for granted that the international players know, and they're just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But it happened to be the word cooperative. And she goes, what is that? We hit the ball. We don't cooperate. We just play. And so it was such a huge transition for her. Why would I modify anything I do? But the reason why you do is because the opponents need to understand what's going on. The players are working on a certain drill. In their mind, it's like go 100 the entire time. And so you'll see them, some of the errors she makes is because that's what we do. You know, it's going to work. You know, you're never told to dial it back. And so that takes a transition, because in their mind, in my opinion, it becomes something that now you're questioning whether they're able to do it. So today in practice, there was this ball, the self went up, and in my mind, there was no way in the world she should have been trying to hit that ball, but she was going for it. So what I said to her is, I was like, Self, if we're in a match, I can't have you do that. But in practice, it's okay, because I know what you're trying to do. And so it's kind of giving them the ability to know, I recognize why you're doing what you're doing. But in the match, we can't have that type of error because the ball was just not in the window for her to be successful. Now, I said, if you touch 11 feet, different story. But you're not touching 11 feet, so you can't do that.
How do you feel about Anna going into?
You know, Anna has had 3 days of good learning and absorbing information, and, you know, I think it's just a matter of time when it will click. Will it click as a setter, as a defender, as a blocker, as a communicator, and all of that? I don't know the answer to that question. But at the end of the day, what I told her was her number one priority is to set the ball. If you put the ball in a location where the players can be successful, you will be light years better, and everything else will become secondary. You know, when Panina played, she wasn't a great blocker, but she was a phenomenal defender. And so she never lost her mind over, she didn't block a ball or a big person went up there. She was like, okay, whatever, I expect you to do that. But if you hit it right down, I'm gonna get you. But I'm gonna make up for that and some on defense. And it's trying to help Anna understand. And so one of the things we did was, like, out of the 4 categories, setting, blocking, defense, serving, rank yourself in those. Knowing setting is number 1 because your name is setter. So setting is what you have to do. Now put yourself and rank which one comes next and why, and then kind of talked about the priority of, this is what we're gonna do on a daily basis, and you're gonna get the opportunity to work on the other 3, but you have to invest in that one that's number 4. And you have to understand that you and Kaysen are completely different from one another, and that's okay. I don't need you guys to be alike, but your strengths can't be her strength if we're gonna actually grow as a team. And Kaysen had a phenomenal practice today too, by the way.
Is she getting over her yips?
Yeah, she's good. She's good. And she knew she had a good practice today. So at the very end, and I kind of tell them I don't always give compliments because I feel like as soon as I give one, they go and do something that's a bonehead play. But then I was like, okay, Rita, you have to get over this. You have to realize that they need to know that they did something good. Otherwise, they'll only hear from me if they do something bad. So I went out on a limb. So tomorrow, if y'all know I'm like scratching my head, it's because of what I said today. I'm like, but I went up to Kaysen and I said, Kaysen, you did a phenomenal job today. She goes, yes, I know, I can tell. And so for me, that was huge for her to recognize that she did. Because, you know, Anna is more here and Kaysen's like, hey, life is great. And so trying to teach them how to play to their strengths. You know, Anna, you're never gonna be a Kaysen. And Kaysen, you're never gonna be an Anna. And I don't want that. But what you bring to the table and how you bring it to the table is what really matters.
So what are the differences between those 2?
I'm pretty sure this is gonna be someplace, so I can choose my words correctly. Anna is more reserved, and, you know, like, very rarely do you see her smile on the court. Whereas Kaysen is just loose and, you know, it's like, hey, fun-loving. And so depending on where you are as a player, I wanna look to someone that may be a little bit more fun-loving versus a person that's looking so serious. Or I'm too loose, I need to look at someone more serious. So it's just a matter of how they can pull a little bit. So I told them both yesterday, if Kaysen, you had a little Anna, and Anna, you had a little Kaysen, we'd be like cooking some good stuff here. But, you know, and they're both stubborn in that sense, that they don't really understand it. But because we sat down, those were the 2 we sat down with yesterday and kind of wrote some things out and talked about it, it made sense, it clicked. And so as long as Anna gets 10% better, we're wonderful. Kaysen, you get 10% better, now you're pushing Anna, now you're putting yourself in a position to maybe take the position. You know, there's nothing so solid in my mind because every match we play is gonna call for a different formula.
And ASU, I mean, rivalry's always big, but, I mean, they've got to be feeling good about where they are.
Absolutely.
Especially with the new coach and everything. What do you see?
I see a team that is 12-0, a team that hasn't played at home because they, for whatever reason, they couldn't play any preseason at home. So they'll be excited about that. I told our team that there's a good chance they'll have a good crowd because it's against us, and we're playing in the hockey arena, which we've never been in. So that'll be a more intimate environment, but, you know, half of our team is new, so they have no idea what the gym is gonna look like. But we talked a little bit about what the rivalry means, but more so in the terms of this is the first week of Pac-12 play. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day who we're going up against, we have to be ready to play. And I know that they enjoy winning, but who doesn't, right? But for me, it's a matter of us staying focused and just doing what we've worked on in practice and not be caught off guard.
Do they, when you see them on film, do you see anything different they're doing than they did under Sonia, or
That they did.
that they did under the previous coach, or?
I think they're playing a lot harder now. I think that they play within the realm of what they're capable of doing. I don't see them going out and trying to do the impossible. They have several returning players, you know, the graduate setter, you know, Shannon, and then the opposite, and then both outsides played last year. And so, you know, the one middle for sure played 23. So they're a veteran group. They get it. They've played with one another. Now, what does that mean under what the parameters are of JJ? I don't know the answer to that question. But on film, they're a competitive team.
And then you've got Wazoo, and they're.
Number
doing
7,
very well.
they're doing very well with a very experienced international team. And so you asked a question earlier about international. One of the things that you have is you have an older group, and they're not fazed by much of anything. They're just going to go out there and do their job. They've had some good wins. They've been challenged. And so, you know, it's that for us, I'm glad we played Wisconsin, because we'll play a team that is used to winning, that is comfortable, that have experience. And so it's not something that's unfamiliar. In the past, I believe that we went into several matches never knowing what we were walking into because we didn't see it enough. And so it's a matter of every match that we played in preseason is preparing us for what we're going to see in Pac-12 play. All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah. Y'all be asking me some questions that I'll be having some funny answers for.